Right, so yes, the main thrust of today's symposium will be about public art. We all have a certain understanding of public art. We all know what public art is. Public art, this is public art. I mean, we all know public art, aren't we? Big bronze fella on a horse somewhere in town. I wonder how many of these you actually recognize on your way to work. Most of these we filter out because there's so many bloody bronze men on horses, aren't there? I mean, what's completely bizarre about them is that very often we don't know who the guy is. I mean, in this one's written in English, but often the plaque is written in Latin. I don't know about you guys, but I don't speak Latin, so I've got no idea about that. Generally, there's no mark that says who the artist was or why it's there, or even, what the artist was thinking when he was creating the work. And I'm going to talk just really, really briefly about public art, about what it is now, what I think it could be, things we can do with it, interesting things, and feel free to shout at me if you disagree, or if you agree, would be great. What annoys me particularly about this kind of work, whilst I'm on the subject, is that there seems to me, when you look around cities, to be generic classes of work. I mean, here we are, creative people, able to create work in urban spaces, and yet somehow or other, there are these families of work that pop up. The Man on the Horse is a good example. But I could also show you the highly polished rock, perhaps. This particular rock is a special version because it's got a hole in the middle, and so it puts it in a slight subgenre of the highly polished rock. However, just like many of the other highly polished rocks, this one doesn't say who the artist is. You've got no idea how he got it there, or he rolled it in, or whatever he did with this particular rock. And once again, it kind of points to a genotype. I think that's the word. It points certainly to a family of artistic kind of creations that we find in urban spaces. And when you think that here we are as artists, as people who are able to do whatever we like, and yet suddenly I'm being able to classify work, and I find that really galling, very, very depressing. I suppose what I'm really getting to the point is if this is called public art, which public are they claiming to represent? Who is the public that this is talking to? I'm sure there is some. There was that law about online, there's somebody doing something kinky with practically everything. I mean, this is in a similar kind of thing. Basically, someone somewhere is definitely subscribing to this, and yet public art for me really should be about the public. I mean, if we go back to the man on the horse, I can't get on the horse. I want to get on the horse. I want to play with the guy. I want to hold his sword. I want to muck about with the man on the horse. But I can't. It's set at a physical distance. I mean, usually there's barricades telling me I can't get near the horse. But I think probably more importantly, it's also set at a psychological distance, a philosophical distance, if you will. For me, it's very, very frustrating because if that work is supposed to create a sense of place or perhaps in some way kind of create a joining feeling between me and the artist or the work or the idea behind the work, then it's not. In many cases, it's actually pushing me away. In many, many cases, it's actually kind of creating a barrier between me and the work, and certainly the work and the place. And so we're going to go through a few more of these highly polished rock-esque type things. This is another kind of work. This was Michael Jackson in his white phase. This is basically, he was commissioned, I believe, by Mohammed Al Fayed. He's outside Chelsea Football Club, or Fulham. And basically, another interesting subcategory, the highly figurative work, when I say figurative, I mean in the loosest possible sense. I mean, I know it's Michael Jackson because I've read the plaque, but actually he's certainly not really, to me, conjured the magic of that performing king of pop. Anyhow, what's interesting about these figures is that, again, you've probably seen this a million times, possibly not this one, but you've seen the guy standing on the platform waiting to get on the train, the bronze figures. We were just in Perth in Australia, and there was a series of bronze kangaroos hopping down the street. In the City of London, there's bankers with their papers in the air, frozen in that bronze moment. Well, I mean, I'm not putting those down. I mean, figuratively, they can be quite brilliant in the way that they've captured that moment. But again, it seems rather tragic that that really we're looking at works which keep that divide and really don't involve us very much in that feeling, that philosophical sense of what public art should really be. Now, before we change off this category, I'm not going to be rude about Nelson Mandela at all. In fact, you couldn't be. The man is a living legend. But this statue has been described as an alien paedophile come to steal your children. I mean, I don't know about you, but has he captured the grace and majesty of Nelson Mandela? I don't think so. He's captured some kind of strangely scary child-snatching mode. I'm not. And it was universally panned when it came out. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, certainly the sculptor has captured something, but I'm not sure it was what we all wanted when he did a Nelson Mandela statue. So that's the introduction, really, to the world we live in. We live in a city where these genotypes, these works are dotted willy-nilly around the city. Now, just a quick bit of background. My family are all musicians. I use that in a very, very loose sense. There's a lot of music in my family. People banging things, shouting, singing, warbling. Knowing the words is never that very important, not very important. But it's much more important, really, for us to get involved. I remember as a kid, distinctly remembering the moment when my dad had a Andrew putting on his shoes song, or a Andrew's making another piece of toast song, or, and he'd hear us tune off the telly and he'd bang it out on his guitar. And it was dreadful, largely speaking, for other people to come in and think, what is it? Is that a song I'm supposed to recognise? The point, though, the thing I think that I've really taken on, and the thing that I think we've tried mostly with Greyward's work, is that it's not so much the quality, it's not so much verse 3 of the Beatles song that my dad's murdering in the background, it's actually the taking part, getting involved, the shared experience was actually, for me, the big joy, the most wonderful thing. And because my whole family were doing it, we were all kind of, well, that is not my family, but just to give you an idea of a family playing music, I thought I'd put this slide in. I mean, if you imagine that this is me and this is my dad, and we're just kind of having a little song, and again, none of us know the Beatles track, and it doesn't really matter. We're all just kind of getting stuck in. And I think that's really where Greyward, the art group that I founded, sort of began. Now, as a child, you pick up a stick and run it along railings and get that lovely sound. We took a set of railings and we tuned them. So when you ran a stick along it, it played The Girl from Ipanema. This was our first artwork, and I think because a lot of our early stuff was, my family life was so musical, a lot of the early stuff we did was very, very much based around sound and music. Now, as a statement of public art, this is as important to me about what it isn't as to what it is. In this instance, it's still a bike, it's still a railings that you can chain your bike to, it still stops you getting into the park, but for that moment of running the stick along the railings, that lovely exalted moment when the tune arrives, that for me, that's that little magical twist, which is the kind of thing that we're really, really looking for. This was a temporary work over the Liffey in Dublin. This is a bridge spanning two sides of the river, as most bridges do, actually. Note to self, must remember that. So basically, I suppose it could have stopped halfway, couldn't it? I mean, it could have had half a bridge, but it wouldn't have been much of a Millennium Bridge. Anyways, basically, the blue carpet on the bridge signified that something strange was going on. And what we did, tiny little sensors, incidentally, we added the carpet, it's not part of the bridge. Tiny little sensors embedded in the carpet detected your motion and made sound. So when you walk across this bridge, you walk through crunchy snow, or you splosh through water, or you walk through crunchy leaves. These were little attempts to get people to look twice about the area that they were walking through, because of course they've walked across that bridge many, many, many times. And so you've only got really a fraction of a second to catch people. This is a bit we did, project we did a couple of years ago up in the north of England. Giant clockwork keys have appeared in a forest in the north of England, just begging to be turned. And as you do, hundreds of tiny little hidden music boxes embedded not just in the tree but in the canopy, some of them right very low down, begin to play their music. These keys themselves are all over the place. Some are high up in the canopy. There's some tiny little keys for very, very small people. You can just see a key kind of just back there. This is a permanent work. Most of our work has become permanent over the years. So this project was called the Clockwork Forest. Now, what's interesting about this, apart from the fact that you need no introduction when you have a key that comes from something, from anything, we found actually as a wonderful metaphor for interaction, that if I had a key at the back on my back now and I walked around, you'd get it completely. He's obviously a clockwork man. It becomes... And so you know, and in many ways, these metaphors are things that we're constantly searching for. We recently started experimenting with microphones. Another great metaphor. If I stuck a microphone here, and you'd know exactly that you had to speak. And we just started making a microphone that when you speak, after a little while, the microphone begins to swell up as it fills up with all the words. And after a little while, you have to squeeze it. All the words come back out again, so you can empty it. Then you can have another go with a microphone. I think it's a perfectly reasonable idea for a microphone. So we're looking for these kind of these metaphors for ways in which you can encourage interaction. This is a series of pieces of street furniture that we made in Cambridge. It's not there anymore. This was there for about 4 or 5 years. We just thought it would be funny if you look at public space. You know, generally these things are placed in our space. Well, what would happen if perhaps we were visitors to their space? So, and this is 6 bins and 6 benches in a town square, but you could whistle to them and they would come over to you. On a Tuesday, the bins would line themselves up, you know, in a nice little line so that the bin man could come along and empty them. It's a bit shit being a bin, to be honest with you. Getting your insides pulled out and thrown in the back of a van once a week. But these kind of installations were interesting because for a while, people began to infect them, if you like, with a personality. They would sit on this particular bench or this particular bin, became a friend of theirs because of the way they moved. This is an installation up in the north of England in Leicester. This is in the Midlands. This is I'm only going to talk about this very, very briefly, but one of the things that Greyworld try very hard to do is if there's other budgets available in an installation, we can rob that cash and we can add it to our budget and hopefully do something a little bit more complex. This is a series of bollards. Normally they look completely normal, but when you walk past them, they begin to spin like a music box, and each one generates a little sound melody. So as you walk through town, you can watch that little melody of the bollards as they spin and gently relax. You can see that people have moved through the town square. That project was called Bollards. The one before Clockwork Forest was called Clockwork Forest. The Bridge project was called Bridge, and Railings we called Railings. I've always thought if you need a clever name, you're probably missing something from the work, you know. Now this is a permanent work outside Tate Modern. It's called Monument. It's a big bronze figure of a man holding a paintbrush. What's a bit different from this one is as you walk past it, he has a look at you and tries to copy the pose that you're in before going back to being a statue. He's actually permanent. You guys can go along and have a play with him. I think it's ironic, this area, Bankside, was a space where a lot of human beings paint themselves gold and become statues. And here's a statue desperately trying to be human, standing up on a pedestal. It actually comes with a Latin inscription, of course. And this one says, quid Latin dictum sit videtur est, which translated means anything written in Latin sounds clever. Can we? Yeah, cool. I've got 10 seconds left. I'm worried about the trap door open. But basically, big wall, bucket, special machine takes your face, photograph, squirts it into the bucket. And you can see she's just chucking that face onto the wall. Nokia commissioned this one. It also let you take your phone out. You could take a picture of your own face and you could blow it over the wall. You could flick it across the wall. You can see it's just going to go splat, 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 splat. This is Neil chucking his face on the wall. And what was lovely as well is because people could do it all over the world. You know, you could take part of it. Okay, I'm going to skip this one. Look, I've had these down my trousers all day long. Basically, this is a bunch of flowers. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. I was very lucky that my lucky Superman underpants didn't come out on the end of those. Now, these are cool. I wanted to be a magician. I wasn't very good, but these are kind of interesting because, they squeeze up. They're quite warm, actually, at the moment. They squeeze up very, very small, and they pop up very, very big. Very interesting. This is a project we've got permanent work in a big building in Spitalfields. Imagine that these flowers are open like that, but they can close and be very, very small. In this atrium, when you go up inside the glass lift, all the flowers open to follow the lift as it rises up inside. And when the sun comes out at the top, all of the flowers open and tilt slightly up so they can get some of that sun. This obviously is called bloom, naturally. Now, I'm coming to the end. I've got an extra 3 minutes on here, which is cool. Right. I don't know if you guys saw this in Trafalgar Square. I suppose if my little talk here has an arc, it's that although this has become incredibly complex as works of art, the actual effect here is incredibly simple. This is a bloody great big sun in the middle of Trafalgar Square on the coldest, darkest, wettest, most shittiest day in the history of it was Monday the 23rd of January, very, very grey. 230,000 watts of electricity and 3 million lumens of light, and this is what we made.
Every time I look at you, I smile. I smile. I smile.
Galleries. All right, a gallery is where you can do whatever you like. If you're an artist, do whatever you like. If you want to nail your genitals to a piece of wood, no problem. If you want a picture of your grandma, it's fine. Galleries are your space to play. They are where artists have that sterile and white-walled place. They can do what they like. I think when you make work in public spaces, you've got a very different set of rules. I think it's really important that we engage the public, people, us, ordinary people, not people with degrees or an interest in art, people who are on their way to buy a can of beans or go down to the supermarket or meet their grandma. I think as an artist who calls himself a public artist, you've really got to consider those people, and I hope you've thought that that's exactly what we've done. Thank you.